Okay, so we're on air now again for episode 9, I think it is now. We've been doing this for quite some time now. We're catching up. We're going to be veterans soon, Rob. We'll be very experienced at this thing we do.
Yeah,
so another great week.
I don't know what kind of thing, but it is a thing of some sort, isn't it? If someone out there can tell us, please leave a comment below. Tell us what kind of thing this is. Good or bad, thumbs up, thumbs down, who cares?
Yeah, I mean, I'm professional at talking shit. I mean, at least I'm good at something.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Well, that's what the internet was created for, wasn't it?
Oh, I think
allow everyone to talk shit.
I think that's it. It was made with me in mind, I think. But yeah,
about 3 billion others. Yes.
Yeah. So been a good week. So how have you been, Rob, this week?
Good, thanks. Yeah, I got or paid off a piece that I should be getting hopefully in the next couple of weeks. I won't name drop anything until it gets here, and I might have another piece coming in the next 2 weeks actually, but again, we'll wait until it arrives before we make any bold announcements about which pieces I'll acquire. But that's been my week. I've been really busy with work and life and what have you, so haven't done much in the way of keeping up with statue news. I don't know about yourself. I did though manage to go and see Batman versus Superman. I must have been one of the last people on the planet to have gone and seen it.
And what did you think? Tell the audience, Rob.
We've already had this little discussion, but we'll go through it again quickly. I have reservations about the film. I don't personally. I don't think it's as bad as a lot of critics have written. But saying that, I don't think it is a great film either. I think the film has a lot of issues, structural issues. Issues with tone that come out of some of the, I think, misguided structures that have been applied to the film, and other elements that don't quite gel, and some of the writing is pretty lazy, which is unfortunate given the nature of who Chris Terrio and I would have expected would have picked up on a few of those instances, but otherwise it is what it is. My favourite part of the film was actually all the references to Excalibur in the film, John Borman's 1981 Arthurian retelling, both literal and figurative, and those uses throughout the film as well. That was personally my favourite part, and I like hearing the I think it's the Viennese waltz pop-up, which is when Ben Affleck meets Gal Gadot, whatever her name is, the girl who plays Wonder Woman, when he's talking to her about the little device that she pinched, and the waltz is playing in the background from Eyes Wide Shut, Stanley Kubrick's Eyes Wide Shut. Well, that was a nice little nugget in there as well, which I smiled at. But otherwise, yeah, I do have reservations. Not great, but certainly nowhere near as terrible as a lot of the reviews have been either. Just to quickly expand on some of that, talking about things like the structural issues, this again might be related to me personally more so than other people who have seen it and sat through it. I feel the depiction of Batman in the film I thought was very good. I liked Affleck as Batman. I liked the story that he went through in the film. I thought those sequences were the best, and I feel that if they'd stripped out Superman, got rid of all the Superman references, taken out Lex Luthor, taken out Superman, taken out Wonder Woman, and just made it a straight Batman film, I felt it would have been a much stronger picture. Because if the film has a centre, it is Batman. He's really the main character in the film for me, and you can't doubt that. He's the opening narrator. He closes it with the narration, and the film really does centre on him. And some of those, now getting into the sort of structural issues, I feel unfortunately poor Superman is given a bit of a raw hand, or a bit of a dud hand, and he's been shoehorned into something that probably he wouldn't have best fitted in. And again, just to expand on some of those things, Chris Nolan, the executive producer and obviously director of the Dark Knight trilogy, he's talked previously about not having crossover films between DC characters. Well, he's talked about not particularly liking that type of film where you're having multiple superheroes all vying for screen time and lines and things to do in such a film, and he didn't like that idea, and I tend to agree with that. And I think that it's a bit like, when you talk about Batman and Superman, conceptually for me, it's like mixing oil and water, and that they don't mix at the end of the day, unfortunately, conceptually for me. And as an example of that, maybe an example of a few more things that I felt were not so flash in the film, the character that Holly Hunter plays, the senator, throughout the first 45 minutes, whatever it is she's on screen, first hour, she interacts a lot with Lex Luthor, and she's really just there to be an expositionary mouthpiece for some of the themes that the film's trying to cover. And she's posing all these questions about, Superman, is he a vigilante or is he a hero, and does he have the power to do this and the responsibility, and and she does that for about 45 minutes. And I think those questions probably shouldn't be answered, or probably shouldn't be asked in a Superman film. When I think of Superman as a character, I think of he represents what is best in humanity, and he is the virtuous spirit, so to speak, which is he's helpful, caring, kind. Those questions are not questions that should be in a Superman film for me, for my take on it. They're questions better suited in a Batman film, and should definitely be asked of Batman, who obviously is the sort of the Dark Knight, the more of a vigilante type of crusader, if you will, in society. So that kind of thing, as I was watching the film, irked me. I didn't like that stuff. And again, the character that Holly Hunter plays, I love her as an actress, but it's a terribly written character. She doesn't do anything but appear on screen, mouth a few of these platitudes, and then disappear and pop up every sort of 4 or 5 minutes in the first hour of the film, until obviously she meets her end in the hearing, the committee hearing. That's sort of one of the issues I had with the film. What else? Okay, I guess there's enough of that. We'll just talk about some of the good things very quickly to finish off. I liked as I said, the Excalibur references. If you know the Arthurian legend well enough, there's a lady in the lake who gives the sword Excalibur to King Arthur, the magic sword which he uses to rule the kingdom. And it's interesting that Lois Lane has all these parallels to the lady in the lake. The first time she meets Clark, she's sitting in the bathtub, and of course, right at the end, she's the one that dives into the pool to get the staff to give to Batman or Superman in order to go and kill Doomsday, as it is. So, if you're looking for sort of those parallels, she sort of fits that bill. And Superman, of course, being the King Arthur, had a lot of those motifs overlaid onto his character. And just in closing on that, the last fight sequence with the kryptonite spear, how he puts it through Doomsday, and Doomsday stabs him with the end of his hand that's grown into that spike, whatever it is. Those shots are literally lifted straight out of John Borman's Excalibur. They're almost direct copies. At the end of Excalibur, King Arthur is standing there with his sword, and he meets his bastard son Mordred on the battlefield, and Mordred's carrying a long spear of his own. He runs the spear through Arthur. Arthur pulls himself down on the spear, takes Excalibur and plunges it into the chest of Mordred, killing him. So as I was watching the film, I was just going, I've seen that before, you bastard Snyder. You nicked that from John Borman. So that was interesting. It was good fun seeing that, though, I've got to admit. Knowing that Snyder must be or someone on the production must be a pretty big fan of John Borman's Excalibur, which personally is one of my favourite films. I absolutely love it. It's still the best retelling of the King Arthur story put on film. Now, it's that is almost a magical movie for myself. But that's where I'll leave my ramble about Batman versus Superman for now. Didn't hate it. Didn't come out of it feeling, I'd seen the best thing ever. It just, I've got to say it was an average flick, which, that's what it was for me.
I was wanting to dive in because it brings me back to my point. I think like you said perfectly about adaptations of characters and whether you can accept the new take or not. And that is why I love this film more than the Richard Donner-like version, is because this is set, as much as people don't like it, as like the idea, and the thing that bores me about Superman as a character is the fact he is just easily accepted, perfect in every way, flawless. And I think, in a way, this film shows how imperfect humanity is, because you think about it in the film, Superman never ever does anything bad. He never hates the human race. He loves the human race, but the human race hates him. But if you think about it, that in the real world, if you think about if aliens came to Earth, let's be honest, no one's going to accept him with open arms, are they? Without something's going to be too divided.
But I think this for me is where I have structural and tonal issues with the film, because when I think of sort of Superman, and again, they're questions for mine that probably shouldn't be posed in a Superman film. I might, again, it's hard for us to sort of comprehend each other, because we're coming at the idea of the question of who is Superman, and we have different framing points, different references that inform us as to who this character is. Now, for me, those are things that I probably wouldn't, if I was making a Superman film, I wouldn't want to ask those questions, because to me, those questions do not reflect who the character is. And when you're talking about storytelling is character. It's all about character. How does a character grow? How does a character work through issues or problems that they have in their life? And those are problems and issues that I would never ask of Superman, because I don't feel they're issues that fit his character.
Okay. I think personally,
whereas your frame of reference is very different. When you might feel the total opposite to that, and it's all valid. Again, it's all valid. Yeah. Everyone has different points of view, and again, different frames of reference. It's all about the idea of truth. Whose truth is correct? We all have we all hold different truths, don't we? And everyone's truth is different, because we all have different points of reference and different influences and different cultural backgrounds, etc., etc. So our truths are things that we hold sacred to ourselves that other people might not care a lot about.
Yeah, and like I said, I thought when you were talking about the about it being a very Batman-focused film, I agree with that. And I think the reason they chose Batman was because he's almost, if you get where I'm coming from, he's kind of like a he's like the figurehead of humanity, as in their personal views on Superman.
I think it's a case of we've just talked about. I think it's a case of Batman is we talk about character again. Batman, Bruce Wayne is let's say in the modern age, the last 30 years, 40 years, has been presented as a very shades of grey character. He's not all good like Superman. He's not, a Christ-like figure. If you want to overlay any of the sort of, pardon me, themes and motifs that have been placed upon his shoulders, Batman's not like that. And again, a shades of grey character is always going to be more interesting than a character that might be wholly bad or wholly good, because shades of grey is very interesting. That reflects who we are as humans. None of us are wholly good or wholly bad. We are, each of us do good and each of us do bad. And I think that's why his character works much better. And I also think that's why Batman as a character is much easier to adapt and to reinterpret, because there's a lot of that shades of grey offers a lot of scope in terms of character development and things you can do with him. Whereas, like you say, Superman is a bit more cut and dry, if you will. There's perhaps a little less wriggle room with his character to work in. Yeah. From my perspective.
Yeah, no, I agree. He's definitely a harder character to pull together. But I think the thing I liked about him in this film, and I like him in that Man of Steel, is he's been brought up being told the world's going to hate him. And his father even tells him, he says, you're going to have to make that decision one day, what sort of man you are going to be. Are you going to be the hateful man, or are you going to be, the light of the human race? And I feel in this film, for me, what a lot of people missed is he is the light, because even in his darkest moments, when everyone hates him, he's never on the news, it's hatred, the humanity hatred, Batman hates him, everyone's against him. There's even Lois Lane questions whether him and her are going to work in this world. In the end, he sacrifices himself for the human race and says, "This is my world. You are my world," and dies, knowing that people don't like him and hating him in that hatred. And for me, it takes a strong character to do that, because a lot of people these days hate something. It's fuck you, screw you, then I don't like you, but. And in a way, I thought he was a strong character again, because that fight scene, everyone talks about the fight scene, Batman and Superman, they smash him up. And everyone goes, oh, Batman kicked Superman's ass. And I go, no, he didn't. Superman let him win. There was plenty of, he doesn't want to fight him. He doesn't. He makes that quite clear. And he says, if I wanted to, you'd have been dead already. And he doesn't, and he understands Bruce, and he pities him. He feels so sorry for him, for this messed up man he is. He's not, and again that people miss is they go, this isn't my Batman, and I go, I know, you're right, he's not the Batman we know from like the good old Batman. He's not, he's a broken Batman, he's a flawed.
I actually, again, that's sort of the interpretation that Affleck and others, is very Dark Knights, Frank Miller's Dark Knight Returns. I actually really enjoyed that. I love seeing Affleck as this older version of Batman with, you know, the grey temples and the world weariness about him. I really liked his interpretation, and like I said, I would like to have seen it be a straight Batman movie, and if he goes ahead and makes some of his own standalone, I'll definitely be watching them. I thought he was definitely the best part of the film, without a doubt.
And like I was saying there, like on about this Batman, I mean, he's not quite as old as he is because he's an old man in Dark Knight Returns. In this, he's still a bit younger. He's still, you know, young enough to kick ass. But when we're talking about that, him being broken and a damaged man, Superman, I mean, again, I don't know if you felt the same way as I did, but I thought that Martha scene was incredibly powerful. That scene was very, very powerful the way it was done, because I felt that in his final moments, Batman's about to off, you know, yes. Superman. And in his final moments, it's not, no, don't, everyone, if you hear everybody in the film, is please, please don't hurt me. And in his final moments, if he's going to die, is save Martha, save my mother Martha. Well, and I think it showed his selflessness, you know. And I love that scene, and I know why he says Martha. It's not because, hey, it's a coincidence they have the same name. It's because he knows who Batman is at this point. He knows. He even said before, people keep asking, why does he say? How does he know that? How would he know his parents have the same name? And even he knows Bruce. He already knows Bruce Wayne. Anybody that knows Bruce Wayne, he's a billionaire. They're all going to know what happened to him. If someone famous had a tragic thing happen to them, you know about it, don't you? That's it. It's not like he was swept under the carpet. Everyone knows, even in the comics, everybody knows what happens to Bruce Wayne's parents.
Especially a reporter.
Exactly. And the reason he says Martha is because he knows that's the only way. So he's thinking, if you're going through your head in that time, you think, how am I going to relate to this person? That's the way you do it. You'd say, save Martha, save my mother Martha. Yeah. And Martha gets his attention. Then he says, say they've got her. And then he goes, save my mother. And I absolutely love that part, because you can see then, when he says, well, how do you know that name? How do you know that name? And you can see he's about to explode on the inside. You know what I mean? All that anger, all that rage is coming out of him. And in that moment, I think he realizes that they're not so different after all. They are very much alike. They're both. This being is still got human emotions. He still has people he cares about. He can still lose things. He's not perfect, and that loss for him, he knows what that loss is like. And he says to him, "I'll make you a promise. Martha will not die tonight." And again, I love that line, because in his own head, it's him fixing the night that happened to his parents, if you know what I'm saying. He's
I know what you're talking about. It's a good bit in the film, and I'm glad you actually brought it up, because I'll have two things to say about it. When I talk about the structural issues of the film, that's really the ending. All the stuff that comes after that is really superfluous, and the reason is because whose film is it? It's really a Batman film. Like I said, Superman is really shoehorned in there. He doesn't really have much of a character arc. It's very forced, but like I said, Batman's arc finishes at that point in the film when he makes that promise, and that's probably the best bit in the last section of the film for mine. That's where it should have bloody well ended. That was a good bit. But when I talk about structural elements, the film goes on for another 20 minutes after that, and the problem I have with that sort of end sequence is and this is again, I came out of the film not feeling much of anything, not hating it, but not feeling this is the best thing ever. Because going into that sequence as an audience member, you know that whatever happens between these two characters, they're going to obviously, both solve their differences, shake hands, and say, "Let's not do that again, mate," and off they'll go together, hand in hand, kind of thing. It drains a lot of the tension out of the film. But having said that, you get that with really any superhero movie, especially Superman, where a Superman film can only end in one of two ways. Either A, he fights some kind of super villain baddie, which he's basically done now in about 4 films in a row, or like in the first Donner film, he tries to stop some kind of natural catastrophe. And that's it. If you think about a Superman film, they're the only 2 ways you can end it. A third combination might be a combination of both of them. Some kind of natural disaster while he's fighting a super villain. But that's it. There's no other way to physically end a Superman movie. And when it's like that, it's very hard to engender enthusiasm in an audience when they've seen that 3 times before. And I got to say, as I was watching Superman battle Doomsday at the end there, it was running through my head, well, here we go again. Didn't we just see this in Man of Steel with, destruction galore and super villains battling superheroes? And, for me, that what you've just talked about, that Batman moment, that's where the film should have really been wrapping things up, because that's the end of, for me, the character growth of Batman, who was, for me, the highlight of the film. And I could have done with a much more compressed ending after that. But, most films these days have 24 endings and seem to go on far longer than they should.
Yeah, I mean, I liked, like I said, as you know, I thought this film was great. And I know as well. There's lots of people that think the same as well, and there's lots of people that don't. There's people that like it, people that don't. But
I think it's one of the funny ones that sits in the middle. I don't particularly hate it, but I don't particularly love it either. I'm one of the rare ones.
But I feel like Lex Luthor in it, and people go on about Lex Luthor's motivations and stuff. And he doesn't need to have a step-by-step of why everything he's doing. He is a power-hungry nut job that happens to be born into a rich family. Essentially, that's what he is, and he's got this obsession with having power, and the idea of taking down a god, Superman, for him is like the most satisfying thing ever. And it doesn't matter how he does it. He just wants to be like, I took a god down. That's basically, he's a nutter. There's no reason behind him, and that's what makes him scary, in my opinion. He doesn't have to look scary. It's the idea in his head,
Jesse Eisenberg that's where a lot of people have complained about his performance in the film. I'll be honest, I didn't have an issue with it. It was, to me, that was one of the sort of least problematic issues that the film's got. I mean, I didn't really have an issue with it. I mean, he plays it. When I was watching the film, the things that came to mind were, you might find this funny, was Johnny Depp in Willy Wonka and the Chocolate, or Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, as was remade by Tim Burton. That's what he reminded me of. And Heath Ledger's Joker. He reminded me like a cross between those two. That's what they're the kind of vibes I was getting as I was watching it.
And let's be honest, Joker in The Dark Knight never had a reason. Let's be honest, he didn't. If you think about it, he had no reason for doing what he did. He just even says in the film, I just do things and that's it.
Yes.
And then he says to Batman, I don't want to kill you.
An agent of chaos. That's what he is, an agent of chaos.
Now imagine Joker had money and could do things and have access to things that could destroy planet. That is pretty much what Lex is in this film. He's not Lex from the comics. He's not this professional businessman. The professional businessman was his father. This is his fucked up son. It's been made clear. And I know people go, "Oh, that's just an excuse. It's his son." And I'm not saying it like that, but if you're getting mad that it doesn't look like the person from the comic or from the previous films that's been, or adaptations, it was never meant to be. This isn't like it's tried to do it and failed. It's gone with a completely different take. It's not trying to be the Lex Luthor that we know. Not in any way. It's not remotely trying to replicate Gene Hackman's or it's not trying to do that. It's trying to be something different, and for that, I have to give Snyder props because it's ballsy. And the one thing though, and you just mentioned earlier about all superhero films, Marvel's problem for me, I like Marvel films before anyone gets thingy and says I'm a fanboy or anything, because I'm not. I love as far as I'm concerned, when I first, heard about DC, I was skeptical. I was like, I don't know how they're going to pull this off as well as Marvel. And I think they have for the most part. For what they've done a good job. I'm really impressed with DC. But like I say, Marvel have started this realm off. But the problem is with Marvel, they're too scared on going that extra length, taking risks, ballsy stuff. They're a crowd pleaser. And
again, that's sort of, when they're throwing that much money at these things, I think we've talked about this before. When they throw that much money at these things, they have to, in essence, be the 4-quadrant film. Young, old, male, female kind of thing.
Yeah,
that I can forgive to a certain degree, but I talk about the sort of Marvel, DC. I don't have a preference either way. I think, to be brutally frank, both types of, both groups, Marvel, DC, have been probably about as successful as the other, to be brutally honest. They both have a whole load of duds. They both have a whole load of films that are middling and just average, which I think this film is. They both have their share of really, really, really good films. Neither's perfect, neither's going to be. And, that's the way it will be into the future, won't it? I mean, these commercial endeavours, there's a lot of cooks in the kitchen.
And I think a lot of films as well are personal to that person as well. Like, some people will think one film's a dud and then another is good. It's not necessarily everybody.
That's right.
Agrees on the same thing either.
People are sort of, the critics have ridden the back of this film pretty hard. And as I was talking to you earlier about privately, I personally, I feel it's nowhere near as bad a film as a lot of critics have made it out to be. Granted, it's not a great film either, but a Marvel sort of equivalent, the Age of Ultron, which I've talked about previously, I think is a absolutely heinous piece of work. It's a terrible, terrible film. And I mean, if any film was going to garner really, really bad reviews, I would think it would have been that, because I mean, that's a film that I have watched it twice and turned it off a third of the way through the second time watching, because I just couldn't stand how bad the thing was. So
I think, I mean, would you say Age of Ultron's, or let's say, would you say Batman v Superman as a film then, as a film technically, because like your problems with Batman v Superman are, like you say, are more personal of your idealization. Would you say Age of Ultron was less of that and you just thought it was a crap film, basically?
Actually, the closest DC film I think to Age of Ultron is actually the last Nolan film. And this goes to show I'm not a Nolan fanboy when it comes to Batman or superhero films in general. I think the last Nolan film, Dark Knight Rises, is also a very, very bad film. It's not good at all. I think it's pretty terrible, considering I think Batman Begins is pretty good. That's probably the best Batman film that's been made, in my opinion. And The Dark Knight is a better made film from a technique standpoint, but doesn't have the, let's say, mythic resonance that I feel Batman Begins does. The second one doesn't capture it, but the third one, Dark Knight Rises, is a mess. It's a mess of a film, and I feel it suffers from a lot of the same problems as Age of Ultron. I think Nolan and Joss Whedon, they had too much money. They had too many characters in their script. They had too much plot happening. The films are overstuffed to the point of just being a mess, quite frankly. It's like Nolan had, after Dark Knight, he could have done anything. And he had all these great ideas, and he decided, well, let's just put them all in one film. And the film is a bloody mess because of it. And Joss Whedon, obviously a lot of studio influence there. Marvel's telling him, Joss, you need to have all the regulars from the first film, and you need to have Scarlet Witch, and you need to have Quicksilver, and you need to do this, and you need to do that. And again, it's a film that's overstuffed to the point of there is no character development. And even the character development in Dark Knight Rises, I feel, is just, again, a muddled mess. And that basically comes back to, I think, both filmmakers had way too much money. They had way too much in the way of resources, and their scripts and their films are just stuffed to the gunnel with things happening without actually knowing, or maybe thinking, well, should this actually happen? Does what is happening on screen in terms of plots, in terms of theme, does this come from the characters, and does it relate to the characters that I'm presenting to you? And again, if you go and look at Batman Begins, that is, compared to Dark Knight Rises, it uses the characters, it sets up really well. Dark Knight Rises characters are coming and going left, right, and centre. Batman Begins, we get a core group of characters, and that's who we go through the film with. That's my opinion anyway. Not that it counts for anything, of course.
It's funny you say that, because out of both films, I didn't completely hate Age of Ultron or Dark Knight Rises. I don't think either of them were terrible. I don't think that any of them were terrible. I thought they were watchable. I do prefer Dark Knight Rises over Age of Ultron, personally.
Yes, I do. I actually watched one, I'll pick that one.
I think I enjoyed Dark Knight Rises quite a lot, actually. There were definitely questionable things in it. I do agree there, but I wouldn't say it's a bad film. Age of Ultron, I wouldn't say it was a terrible film. I'd say it's just, there. I still believe Marvel haven't, other than Thor: The Dark World, haven't made an absolute steaming pile of shit yet, and have been pretty consistent. That's just my thoughts anyway. And I think the problem was, I don't think it was Joss Whedon having too much money. It was I think it's quite the opposite. I think studios had too much control on that film. They're too busy. He had it. Remember, he wrote the original script, right?
That's where Joss Whedon. You see, you might cut him some slack. I don't. If Joss Whedon wasn't happy, he should have walked. He should have just said, "Look, here's my script. Take it, do what you want with it," and he should have walked. But he didn't. He stayed. He corrected it. His name's on the film, and I'm going to hold him accountable, as well as I would hold the various producers accountable for actually forcing him to do that.
I mean, he had a script, and they wanted, and I feel people saying Batman v Superman, like the email scene felt out of place. Now, for me, it didn't. I thought it worked in perfectly, the way he sort of contacts Diana Prince. Now, everyone says that takes a pit stop, right? Now, just on that pit stop sort of thing we're going to talk about, Age of Ultron, I felt, did that, and no one picked up on it. You obviously, but I think you will, but it's like the Thor where he just box off into a pit.
Don't get me started.
And that
We could
that
be
bit,
here all night.
but it's like that bit in Age of Ultron. There was plenty of pit stop points to set up other films, and that was my main issues with that film. Well, I didn't feel that with Batman v Superman, but that's just, again, films are subjective, and everyone's entitled to their opinion. No one is wrong. And again, I hate these pricks online that say this film is objectively a bad film, and whatever you say about it is wrong. It's like, fuck off. It's like there's films that I love that have been critically panned, and then there's films that have been universally praised, and I've gone, what the fuck is this shit? Like, you know, there are some films I just can't tolerate, and there's films that but I've never walked out of a film, and the only film that you described as the turning off and walking away was Sharknado for me, because I remember I didn't walk into that film expecting it to be a masterpiece. Let's be honest, Sharknado, the title says it all. But everyone's going, oh, it's so bad, it's good, and it's so funny. And I remember watching the film, and I turned to my family members and went, this is shit. And then they turned to me and went, yes. And then we just turned it up. It was simple as that. Now, everybody, if you're worried about Batman v Superman, well, Sharknado's sitting at an 82% on Rotten Tomatoes, so you can see the critical headspace there, and that's why I say don't always trust them, because a lot of the times they are full of shit. And
I mean, that whole movement of films that are so bad that they're I don't know, satire or parody or whatever. They're so bad they're good kind of thing. I sit with you there. I don't understand that. If I'm going to invest 2 hours of my time to watch what you've made, if it is one of those films, then at least it better be funny. And when I look at most of those films, they're not very funny. They're just bad, and they're just badly made. And I'm totally I'm rowing in the same direction with you, Ryan. There, I totally agree there.
Like I say, critics, as far as I'm concerned, I mean, okay, critics, here you go. I'm winding this up.
Yes.
That's what you get, and that's for Batman v Superman's bashing, because it did not deserve that. Fuck you. It's my favourite superhero film in the recent years, and that's me personally. I love Man of Steel. I know some people didn't like Man of Steel, and I respect their opinions, but I disagree strongly. I think Man of Steel, where some people go, it's like you say, you had that lukewarm feel about it, and the same with this. I feel that, for me, Man of Steel, because of its subject, I thought it was a masterpiece, in my opinion. That's, again, my opinion. And the same with Batman v Superman. I think Batman v Superman is a perfectly good film. If I'd have watched that film not knowing that the critics had panned it beforehand, I would have at least said it would have been in the mid-70s at lowest. I feel that would have been the nice niche, that spot. And I said, that's about where it is. When I saw that 30% score, I was disgusted. I was like, did we see the same fucking film? Because, again, Star Wars The Force Awakens, I'm going to just bring this up, and this might piss off a few people. Now, I did not hate the film. I enjoyed the film. I watched it 3 times on the cinema, and I did enjoy it more as this time progressed on. But I will be honest, my first viewing of that film, I came out going, I didn't fully feel that. And while I enjoyed it a lot, there was that conflicting feeling. And when you know something deep inside, it just hasn't hit home. That was a feeling I had with that film. And that film got critically acclaimed. No one could say any wrong about that. Nobody said any wrong about that film, really. And I hate to break it to you, but in my opinion, that film is far from a fucking masterpiece. People are right. The more you look at it, that film is very lazy in a lot of ways. It's a rehash of A New Hope, and that is disgusting in a way when we think about it, because everybody's been led to believe this is supposed to be an entirely new tale, which it's not. You recycled plot elements from the previous films, and yes, the characters were good. Yes, there were some great things in the film, but again, the film relied too much on nostalgia. to draw people in. And it was like my dad, right? This is big thing for it right here. My dad likes the film. Thought it was good. He didn't hate it. But my dad is a massive Harrison Ford fan, and he loves Han Solo. Han Solo, when he was a kid, that was it. That was the dog. He was like, fuck everyone else. Han Solo, for the fucking win. And do you know what? That completely blew me away. The scene where Han Solo died, he says, was he had no feeling in that film. He didn't care at all. He says, that scene when it came up, he goes, I knew it was coming. When it happened, he says he wasn't going to go, hey, son, come home. And Kylo Ren was going to go, okay, Dad, let's go see Mum. You know, it was never going to happen that way. And he says when he saw it, he was like, I didn't care. He wasn't Han Solo for me in that film. He wasn't. And that goes to show you, when you have somebody that's an avid fan and goes, no, I don't care, you've failed, in my opinion. And, well, Force Awakens wasn't a terrible film. Critics looked its flaws and didn't say anything wrong with it. They went, well, it is the same as The New Hope. Well, it is this. Well, it is that. But that's okay because it's Star Wars. Now, Batman v Superman, I know Snyder's not a favourite anyway, so we should expect that. But you have to give the man credit. He stepped out of the comfort zone. It's like when you're on about the ideals of Superman. He could have just gone, hey, let's let everyone like Superman. Let's have him happy, shiny. But he went, no, what if the world didn't accept Superman? And let's go tell this other story about this character where he is good. He's still the same guy, but the world doesn't see him that way. And for me, while people have complaints about that choice, it's a ballsy move. And in filmmaking, the one thing films aren't doing enough these days is being ballsy. They're all playing it safe. It's all fucking cookie cutter. And, well, it's got to do this because we've got to set up this new film. And don't worry. And the problem is, as well, Marvel's biggest fucking downfall, and I knew it from the start, was announcing their entire line of movies. Because once you know all these characters are going to be in this movie, it takes the suspense out of any of the other films.
That's what I was alluding to earlier. Sort of, you know what's coming down the pike. Way before even a foot of film is even shot, kind of thing. It's
that's it.
There's not much there. Maybe I don't know. Over the years, I find myself, moving further away from that type of fare and watching maybe less well-known material. Probably because of that, you go into it without expectation and not knowing, you are genuinely going to be surprised. Probably a last word on that subject. You talked about your dad, seeing Han Solo in Force Awakens, and yes, it can be the filmmaker not capturing the essence of the character, which is what I alluded to with Zack Snyder and his take on Superman. But the flip side to that, of course, is that when your dad saw those original films, he was 30, 40 years younger. What was it, 77 when the first one came out? And I was a little boy when Chris Reeve flew across the screen, and I'm not a little boy anymore. And people change, don't they? And perceptions change. And even with the same character being presented, because you change as an audience member, and again, this comes back to that whole idea of what is your truth, what you hold the correct interpretation of a character. Again, that can be very heavily modified through the years as you experience new things and your concepts and ideas about things change through time and experience. But enough about that.
Yeah.
We could do couldn't we?
I think we did a good discussion about that, because I think one thing I always have a great pleasure talking to you is you're always very open and very respectful of everyone's opinions. And I respect your opinion back because you have valid points, and I see exactly where you're coming from with this. And what I am glad out of all of this to take is you at least didn't agree with the critics. You were like, no, it's not that bad. No,
No, well, I'll make my own mind up. I'll decide
That's
what
it.
I think of it and what I don't think of it.
That's
As
it.
is the case, and
That's it.
that's what everyone should do.
I was got because we got the Civil War. I don't know, Civil War's coming out soon, isn't it? So everyone's going. The early reviewers of it are it's wonderful. I'm like, I'll wait, because
Yes.
if anything's going to be a bloated mess, that will be.
Well, they've got a lot of characters in it again. They're all there.
Yeah.
I just hope they maybe centre it a little bit better than Ultron was. Anyway, by the by, we'll talk about that when it hits.
When it comes
so,
out.
talking about
Right.
Star Wars, what did you think of Rogue One? Let me have it. That doesn't sound promising. That doesn't sound promising.
I quite like the trailer, actually. I just like to throw you off like that.
Good job.
I thought it was an interesting trailer. I think it was cool. It's cool to see old Star Wars back again. And it's going to be interesting to see the story unfold. We know the ending, so
yes.
It's got to be interesting. The in-between has got to be interesting. I mean, from the trailers, you got like a new female lead. She, looks, she, most of her scenes were just staring, like this. Yes.
Counting.
And all that crap.
Trying to look badass.
Yeah, pretty much. So I can't really say. I can't make a judgment off the trailer. But I sense this is going to be very war-based, and I think it's going to be very martial arts like, and I'm going to say Jenny Tartakovsky, probably not as fast-paced as Jenny Tartakovsky. Now, if you're not familiar with Jenny Tartakovsky, who he is and what he did a Clone Wars series, not the animated ones that you're talking about, like people talking about the animated that Disney did. This was before Disney. This is when the series was released. It was between episode 2 and episode 3, and it was basically about how clones and Jedi work together to take down the Separatists. And but the style he did it was very fast-paced. It was very camera angles were very stylized. It was brutal for a cartoon show that and aired on Cartoon Network. There was some very very dark subject matter in the series. Like there's like
me and my son would watch that on ABC 3, I think, ABC 2 when they showed it. Ryan, I think you've frozen, or maybe I have. Let's look. Hello, Ryan again.
Hello, it's gone. I don't know what the hell happened there.
Maybe it was Zack Snyder. You see, he's listening.
Perhaps we're destroying everything.
Yes.
Yeah, I was on about the Jenny Tartakovsky series anyway.
Yes, I was just saying before you disappeared, I watched those episodes with my young son on ABC 3. I think they were on years ago when I had them on. So yeah, I'm very familiar with when he took over. There was a distinct because he wasn't the first showrunner on that the Clone Wars cartoon. I can't remember who the first guy was, but he did streamline it, and he did make it a little bit more adult and brought it back to more towards the first 3 films, but sort of built up the characters of Anakin and Padme and others. He did a really good job of, and deserves a lot of credit for the work he did with the show. Absolutely.
Yeah, that's. I think, like I said, this film could be wrong, but I just saw like the Japanese guy, like, like going like smacking the shit out of people, and that I have that vibe. Could be completely wrong, and if I am, you can say you told me so, and stop quoting Jenny Tartovsky stuff, Ryan, because it's never going to happen on the big screen or something like that. I don't know, but that's my feeling. I feel it's going to be very like World War II sort of. Well, it is. You know, I mean, Star Wars is very World War.
Could be. Well, that's what we could be seeing. We could be seeing. I think there are a few references early to when some of the press stuff started leaking on it. It's very Man on a Mission, Dirty Dozen, you know, Inglourious Bastards, and I mean the original, not Tarantino's version. I'm talking about the original version. Yeah. You know, what else? Great Escape, that kind of feel. Yeah. Ensemble, you know, you talk about sort of World War II, that type of feel. I agree. The trailer looked okay. Little bits of it didn't do much for me. I didn't like that voiceover at the beginning where they're rattling off the charges against it. It sounded like, I don't know, someone was reading the paper and they're just sort of going, oh, let's just throw that in there. That sounds like something a naughty person would do. I would prefer, I don't know, intergalactic smuggling or something. I don't know, it just sounded pretty rote to me. And I'm not sold on I'm not sold on the director. I think it's, what's his name?
Gareth Edwards.
That's him, the guy who made Godzilla. There's another film that I did not like one little bit and wish I could get my 2 hours back from. So Monsters was okay. I didn't mind that, but Godzilla I thought was just a load of cobblers. It was bad. Could go either way for me. Could go either way.
I enjoyed Godzilla. Thought it was a good film. Personally, I thought it was a good film. Like, it was put together well and things. But I understand why people, like you say, probably went, oh, fuck, really? You know, like, because obviously Godzilla's not any. But here's one thing you can take, and I picked up on over his films, though, is generally his trailers show what you're going to get, right? So think about it.
They cut one trailer for that Godzilla film that had, you know, when they do that sky jump and they leap out of the plane, and it's got the piece of Ligeti. I think it's atmospheres. It was used by Stanley Kubrick in 2001 for, I think it's a Stargate sequence, and everyone went crazy over that. It was just that, I think that was the trailer. It was only like a minute long or something. Maybe it's, people can dig it up if they want to watch it. And I watched that and thought, ooh, that's interesting. That's nice. I like that. And then the rest of the film is just a turgid load of just, oh my God, it's just so bad. Again, don't get me started on it. It's just, I did not like it at all. It was fucking
I think the idea, what I'm trying to say is,
I can understand why they made that bit in the trailer, because after Bryan Cranston leaves the film and he gets off, spoilers if anyone hasn't seen it, you should have seen it by now, but after Bryan Cranston leaves, that's the best bit in the rest of the film, right there. And it's the only bit that I feel is in any way sort of creative, the use of that music over that sequence. And even then, I wish he'd gone off and instead of using, because I'm pretty sure that would have been temp track that way. That is when they make the film and they cut it together after they've edited, they just lay any old music in against the picture to see what works. And I bet that was the temp track and they just left the temp track in there. They just bought the rights to it and just left it there. I wish they'd gone on. It's a good idea. Maybe if they'd gone and found their own piece of music that might have been something that evoked the same feeling rather than just directly lifting the same piece of music that Kubrick used so well in 2001. But again, anyway, rant over. You continue.
Yeah, I was just basically saying in his trailer, you didn't see much of Godzilla, right? And in the film, you didn't see much of Godzilla. What I'm saying is, if this film looks like it's going to be war, there's a good chance it's going to be war and a lot of spy shit and all that sort of stuff. All I'm going to say, because it is a collector's chat, I'm going to say there's going to be some very interesting collectibles from this film, especially on the Stormtrooper side of things, because there was a tank Stormtrooper and then there was those black Stormtroopers, and when you see a black Stormtrooper, you know they mean business. I like the designs. I thought they were pretty cool. Again, working in with the continuity, that's going to be interesting to see how they pull that off, because we've never seen that before. Not to say that it can't work, because there are probably things we haven't seen, but they were very interesting because their helmet looks a little bit, well, the closest thing I saw in it, I was like, that looks like Darth Vader, and makes me wonder, are they Darth Vader's like right hand or special elite team? Maybe.
I agree with you there. Probably the most interesting bit of this film will be how they're going to fit it into the continuity of A New Hope and Empire, or around that time frame. And when I say continuity, I'm not talking about story continuity, but I'm talking about the visual continuity and the oral continuity. It's the way those films are shot, very different to more modern films, and it'll be very interesting to see if he can match that aesthetic as opposed to making a more modern film that'll cut faster and play much faster. I mean, Star Wars, you show that to a young audience these days, and they think it moves very slowly. It's a slow film for modern audiences, but in 1977, it was considered a fast-paced, quickly cut film. So it'd be very interesting to see how it fits into that continuity.
I mean, we're supposed to be getting Vader in this film. And again, everyone keeps saying, "Oh, Vader's going to be in it. It's Vader again." And I keep going, yes, this could be great. But when Vader is your selling point through a film, yes, it's cool. We all want to see Vader. But part of me is like, this is supposed to be the story about how the rebels got the plans for the Death Star, not how Darth Vader was a badass and here's some rebels trying to figure out how to take down a Death Star. You know what I'm saying? You got to, hopefully they prioritize things.
I agree. Hopefully they're just using Vader as a marketing exercise, and if he does appear in the film, he probably will. I've read all the stories about how they got the original prop guys back onto this film to build an episode 4 suit. So all I can say is I hope if he does appear, maybe it's just a glorified cameo, and we get something that tries to run parallel to A New Hope rather than try and be A New Hope. If you take my meaning.
There's an interesting talk that apparently from the studio, I don't know who it is from the studio, I only know this because I've been told, but there's interesting concept arts that they've got of Darth Vader on the battlefield with troops, and then there's also artwork of him throwing his lightsaber and decapitating people.
I haven't seen that, to be honest. I haven't seen it.
Apparently, I've not seen the artwork, but this is apparently what they said they've got. and apparently we could be seeing now. This is what they're telling us. We could be seeing a more off-the-leash badass Vader, and he's more like taking it out on everyone basically, and just fully, because we've never seen Vader fully kick ass. Let's be honest, he's just a big guy in a big fucking armor that looks cool, just says badass lines and chokes motherfuckers that don't agree with him, which is cool. But we've never. Everyone talks about him being the badass he is, and not. I mean, he is a badass, of course, but if you think about it, he gets beaten by Obi-Wan Kenobi in his prime, regardless if you like the prequels or not. He gets beaten by Obi-Wan Kenobi. Then he doesn't beat Obi-Wan. Technically, he doesn't beat Obi-Wan Kenobi in number 4. Obi-Wan disappears into the Force and trolls him basically and goes, "Fuck you, I'm disappearing now." So he never gets to him. He completely fucks with his mind. And then if we get to Episode 6, pretty much Luke chops his hand off, if I remember right. Gives him
Episode 6, yes. I'm sorry.
So all this about him being an unstoppable force, I would like to see. I'd like to see that. But at the same time, is it going to overshadow the plot of this film? Like what it's trying to tell the story of? Are we going to be like, hey, here's the Death Star, then there's a battlefield, and like Vader's slaying fools all day long, which would be cool. But again, Vader shouldn't be the selling point of this film. It should be the cast or the characters. It's like
I think of the opportunity this film presents. It's a universe they've got to play in here to be telling a different story that doesn't have a Skywalker in it. Might be in itself a selling point, but
I think that's the thing they've done. And one thing I noticed in this trailer, there's no lightsabers. No lightsabers. Hang on, is it disconnecting again?
No, I'm still here, Ryan.
Oh, okay, good. Just making sure.
I'll have to step out for 10 minutes or so. I have to put someone to bed, okay?
Okay, no worries.
Sorry about that. Yeah, you keep rambling and I'll get back to you eventually, okay?
Yeah, I'll keep rambling. Yes, so for people who are watching this anyway, start, like I said, I can't remember exactly where I was now because I'm just trying to think to myself, but bottom line is that this film is good, which I hope it is. I don't want it to be focused around Vader. Vader isn't needed. As in, Vader could play a good part in this film, but I don't want Vader to be the only good part of this film. I'd like to see the Rebels sort of become more badass, because I think the Rebels are very, sort of, Rebels. Everyone cares about the Stormtroopers, and one thing with Star Wars is the villains everyone roots for the villains, I've noticed. And the only one thing I can give Force Awakens some pretty good credit for is you wanted to root for the good guys. You wanted Rey to smack the shit out of Kylo Ren for killing Han, even though it's debatable whether that scene is powerful. But the fact he killed Han, you're just like, this motherfucker's going down. I'm going to beat the shit out of him. And so I think I'd like it to be that you do root for the good guys in this film and get invested in those characters, and are interested in these characters to see what they're like, because that's what we want to see. You want to get along, and like I say, root for the hero. That's essentially what you want to do. You want to be on their side, just like as I talked about in Batman v Superman. The world's against Superman. and Batman's against Superman, but you root for Batman, you understand Batman's point of view, but you do root for Superman. And no, like you want him to kick the shit out of Lex in the end. And that's the same, again, going back to this film, is you want that. You want the characters to, you want them to succeed, basically. And that's, like I say, that's going to be the big deciding factor of whether this film is good or bad, is if the story, we know where we're going to hit, we know where it ends, but the journey's got to be interesting, the characters have got to be interesting enough. And yeah, I mean, there's some really cool ideas that have come out of this film, and I would really like to see a more badass Vader, a more like battle sort of style Vader. And it makes me wonder, in the trailer where you see that guy with the hood, is that Vader in like a sort of proto form? I don't know, like a bastardization. I don't know what to say, because I know everyone says, I mean, I'm not as shit hot on the suits, but I don't know if I'm wrong, but Revenge of the Sith suit is actually slightly different to the A New Hope suit. So maybe he has a suit in between, and then he gets into the new badass suit of the New Hope by the end of the film. So maybe Vader has a different look. Maybe Vader looks like a different person, which would be cool. I like the idea of that, you know, having a very different looking Vader. It'd be interesting to see. Maybe it's more of a practical suit. Maybe it's like more that he takes out to battle, which again would make sense if they are going to have Vader on the battlefield slaying rebels. You know, that would be interesting, cool, and yeah, I would be all for that if they did that. But whether they're going to do that is another thing, because again, it's what we all know and recognize, and know what fan bases are like. You change one thing and everyone loses their shit. Oh, you can't fucking do that, you know. Biggest thing, I mean, I'm not saying it's anything, not being thingy racist or anything like that, but the one thing I could never grasp, well, I'm not being racist and some about people, but the whole thing being a stormtrooper, they could grasp, you know, everything else in Star Wars, lightsabers, using the Force, all that sort of stuff, yet they couldn't get their head around a black man in a stormtrooper outfit. And I was like, what the fuck? What does it matter? You know, little details like that is like a change that I wouldn't have even thought about and people are upset about. So they do have to be careful, especially when you're messing with continuity and a film that's got to tell a story, obviously in between stories. And that's why I think the prequels got a lot of shit. And I don't hate all of the prequels. I don't like The Phantom Menace, but I don't mind Attack of the Clones, and I don't mind Revenge of the Sith. But there is an undeniable thing that you can say is the continuity was fucked. So that would piss a lot of people off, and there's a lot of shit that doesn't make sense. But like the one where I think it's Leia says in Episode 6, because Luke asks what was the mother like, and she explains what a mother looked like, and how would she know what a mother looks like if she was born and her mother died at childbirth? So it doesn't make any sense. And that's what this film's got to make sure it does right, is if it does make any changes, it's got to explain why, then it changes to that, and you know, make it all fit in that time period in between, obviously, the events of Revenge of the Sith to the events of A New Hope. Because Rob, I was just talking about in the trailer where you see that hooded man sort of semi-crouched down. I was saying, what if that is like, it's like a Vader in a different suit, and we were talking about like Battle Vader. Maybe he's got like a war suit that he has that's in between Revenge of the Sith and A New Hope. And also, if you remember right, anyway, if I've got my facts right, the suit does change. There are some subtle changes to the suit. And I know Revenge of the Sith is different to A New Hope's Darth Vader suit. So what's not to say? Yeah, so it's like, what's not to say there's a stupid in between that, maybe. But yeah, enough of me rambling about that. What's your thoughts?
I'll go back and I'll watch the ramble tomorrow when I've got time. Like I said, I'm going to wait and see again. It's not, it looks nice, but it's really not much to go on. And again, it's all story and character, and hopefully the story's strong and the character's strong. Having said that, you've got me for about another 10 minutes, Ryan, and then I'm going to have to go for this evening. Sorry. I've got other issues that I have to handle, family matters and things. So do you want to look at some photos before we go?
Sure, let's do it.
I don't have very many, so it won't take very long, believe me.
To be honest, I think it's been all right this week because we haven't really had much collectible news, so I'm not really thinking about it.
I'll just do these and then we'll talk about these for 10 minutes and then we might have to finish it up. Anyway, so can you see that? So we're looking at Catwoman, the Michelle Pfeiffer Catwoman. Okay, so yeah, this is the end product and Sideshow released. Obviously, well, I certainly got an email about this print through the week, and I thought that's interesting. Shouldn't it be turned to the right? Because if you remember in the film, Batman's supposed to be lying on the floor when Michelle Pfeiffer's on top of him and licking his chops and doing all those things. So, not that I'm ever going to buy the print. I just thought that was interesting that they've got it up the wrong way. The end piece, I like this piece. I think it's turned out okay. We looked at it last week. I like the full effect of it, and the base matches the Keaton. I just don't think I'm ever going to pick it up, personally. I think having the Keaton is enough, and I'm quite sure that Sideshow won't be doing a Nicholson. The rights to get his portrait supposedly, from the Hot Toys experience, you should know, the several that they've done of him are supposed to be crazy expensive. So I don't think Sideshow are going to go down that road, and I don't see them making a Penguin either, a Danny DeVito Penguin. So this might be it for Sideshow and Tim Burton's Batman, but we'll see. Next up, this was the Iron Studios 1/6 diorama, Superman and Doomsday. We've just seen this at the movies, so releasing this. Very hot piece. A lot of people seem to be jumping or trying to jump onto picking this up. I can't remember the price. I did read about it through the week, but I've forgotten about it now. But it was expensive. It was very expensive. Nice looking piece though.
Very solid.
Yeah.
I like Iron Studios.
Here's one for you. These are in-hand pics of the Prime 1 Batman. So this is what you're getting out of the box. Yeah, and it has, I gotta say, it looks really, really, really nice. Not buying any 1/3 myself. I don't have the space for that anymore. But I've got to say, if you've got this coming, congratulations to you. It looks like it's turned out really, really well.
You may get it eventually, but not right now. But I'm going to have to read it down my room.
Yeah, the best pick, there it is with his cape.
Beautiful.
Yeah, it looks really nice. Look at this. This is, I found, the most interesting pick. I own this Thor. This is the Sideshow premium format exclusive Thor that they did, must be about 7 years ago now, 8 years ago when that came out. It's a long time ago, maybe 7, 8 years, somewhere around there. 2008, 2009, something like that. And I have this piece. To the top of the hammer is about 79 centimetres high. Well, I don't know what that is in inches. I don't live in America and don't do feet in inches, but it's big. It's 79, 80 centimetres to the top of that hammer. And as premium formats go, this Thor, pardon me, makes most average size premium formats look small against him. And my God, that Batman just dwarfs the Thor. It dwarfs it. And that Thor is, I'm telling you, from owning it, it's a big piece. It's huge. It's probably alongside sort of, I don't know if you've seen the sort of the Thanos, XM Thanos and the Apocalypse. It's like that sort of size. It's big. It's a big piece. It's very tall. And that Prime 1 Batman, just look at that. Jesus, it dwarfs it. That gives you a really good idea of how big those pieces are. I can tell you right now, owning that Thor, I couldn't imagine having the room to display that Batman.
What about the Batman v Superman half-scale ones, man? That's going to be scary.
I think they're about 4 feet high or something. They're enormous.
Yeah.
I personal preference. I don't like half-scale. I don't like the sort of mini-me approach, or the way things come out looking like they're mini-me versions of. I prefer quarter scale and then life size. I'm not a fan of 1/3 either. I think they're a bit sort of mini-me-ish, but this is a good one. You get to see the layout of all the little bits and pieces that you pick up with him and the instructions. So yeah, that looks like it turned out really, really, really nice. That's a beautiful.
There's a head separate,
Rob. Yeah, there's your Prime 1. They I think on this there's 2 heads, and then they're putting out a bust with another head that you can still use on this statue, because their policy was, when they created this, they only did 2 portraits, but their policy now is I think they're doing 3 portraits on every piece they do. So what they did for this piece was they went back and created a bust, just of the shoulders and the sort of chest plate, and gave you an extra head, which you can use on this statue as well. So there's 2 that come with it, and I think I'm pretty sure there is that 3rd alternate portrait that you can pick up if you get the little bust as well. So there's plenty of switch outs on it. So it reminds me of the sort of XM and Thanos and the amount of switch outs they offer collectors, which is a nice alternative to what is usually out there. I think these are reasonably old. Again, we've looked at him before, the XM Ghost Rider. These were the promo shots that XM put out there of the finished article, which looks pretty nice. And that's all I've got for this week. Like I said, I've had a very, very busy week, and didn't have much time for trolling around forums looking for statue photos. I think it's been a pretty quiet week in terms of collectibles anyway, and I think that's why it's good we've talked about Rogue One and BVS and all that sort of stuff, films, because it's sort of at that stage at the moment where everything that's sort of been announced that we've talked about and the anticipation is kind of out, or it is still waiting. So we're in that sort of. We're coming up to the summer movie sort of field in the States over the next couple of months. So I'd expect things to pick up probably May-ish, and then of course, before we know it, Comic-Con will be around the corner, and supposedly Charlie's going off to Comic-Con again. That's what he's said a couple of times. So we'll be getting some in-hands.
I don't know if you guys actually have seen anybody or seen he's got his own collectible company with a friend. I think it's called Cherry Collectibles.
Oh, yeah. Same.
Some blog videos. If you go check that out on Bruce Campbell's Chin's channel. And he basically just shows you over this weekend, and like I say, because it was Comic-Con Adelaide, and he's doing pretty much, he had a stall there and everything, and so that was good, and so he's doing collectibles and things now. That's going to be interesting. When he starts selling, and then when he starts selling hot toys and stuff, he has to, give us a bit of a discount or freebies here and there as well. I expect that. He's a loyal friend, and Mong on the Mong Squad chat. So Yeah, that'll be good. I hope he does well, and yeah, hope we get him back on the chat again as well soon. So that'd be cool when he's back after his adventures.
Absolutely,
and
it'd be nice to talk to him again.
Yeah, rightio then. We'll let you go now, Rob. Obviously, we'll let you.
Sorry to have to end it a little bit early, but yes,
that's no problem.
And all of that kind of stuff calls, unfortunately, even at this time of night. Yeah. So anyway, if we're sort of talking about Batman and Superman, we've had a really good run tonight with it. If anyone wants to check out a movie of the week, I don't have it with me at the moment, but I talked about earlier in the night, John Borman's Excalibur, and there you are. There's a movie of the week. If you haven't seen it, go and check it out because it's a fantastic piece of work, and maybe a little bit dated for modern audiences, but it's personally my favourite retelling of the King Arthur myth, and has some wonderful Alex Thompson photography and some beautiful work by Trevor Jones, I think it is, who wrote the score, and John Borman picks some lovely traditional classical music as well in there. So go and check that out. It's really nice. And there's a whole stack of stars in that film before they were stars. Liam Neeson, Patrick Stewart, Gabriel Byrne. Oh God, Helen Mirren's in there as well. So, and Nicole Williamson's turn as Merlin is a great one. It's one to see. Anyway, Ryan, I hope you have a great week, and I'll talk to you through the week as I have a bit of time off, and we'll see when we can do the next chat, probably this time next week.
Yeah, sounds good. I hope you have a great week as well, Rob. I say it's great chatting about BVS and Star Wars and brief collectibles at the end of and that, and yeah. So I think a good chat again. Definitely before you go, if you go back to the other video last week, definitely check out that Brett's video.
We'll check it out through the week.
It paints the story next week. Yeah, definitely. It might open up your differences to the film.
Add some grist to the mill, so to speak. Yes.
Yeah, so that would be interesting to see.
Absolutely.
And yeah, so great chatting again, mate. And we'll speak next week and throughout the week. And I hope everybody enjoyed this video and me and Rob discussing stuff. And as always, Rob, I say thanks for discussing. It's always great talking to you. Great thoughts.
Glad to be here. It's always a pleasure to be here. Next week we'll be in double digits. Who would have thought it would have lasted this long?
I know, right? There's somebody out there going, these guys are still at it. They're still going. God damn.
Well, if you're that one person, thanks for sticking with us through thick and thin.
Yeah, that's it.
Okay. Take it easy, and I'll see you next week. Have a good one.
All right. See you next week, mate.
Yeah.
Okay. Bye.